and it's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
In response to Charlie Kirk, Republican vice presidential candidate JD Vance is about to step in it and trigger nonstop ridicule.
It's such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more.
Grandma and grandpa?
Or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare.
A to the Z. He really is clueless and out of touch. People asking family members to care for their kids is not a policy solution. And it's clear he has no idea what the education requirements are. Unsupervised. I don't know how grandma can help out when these Republican want us working till we are 80 or dead, whatever comes first. Ravi, this reminds me of a boss who told me to ask my parents for money when I said I wasn't making enough. John Joe, if this is a Yale grant answer to a simple question, I think all student loans should be forgiven.
Now, you talk about just daycare. Let's say you don't have somebody who can provide that extra set of hands. What we've got to do is actually empower people to get trained in the skills that they need for the 21st century. We've got a lot of people who love kids, who would love to take care of kids, but they can't, either because they don't have access to the education that they need, or maybe more importantly, because the state government says you're not allowed to take care of children unless you have some ridiculous certification that has nothing to do with taking care of kids.
No state government says that. As the Indeed Career Guide notes, for an entry-level daycare job in terms of education, most daycares require employees to have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. That's it. A daycare specialist who makes more money requires a certification, but it's not the burden Vance insists.
So empower people to get the skills they need. Don't force every early child care specialist to go and get a 6-year college degree where they've got a whole lot of debt and Americans are much poorer because they're paying out the wazoo for daycare. Empower working families, empower people who want to do these things for a living, and that's what we got to do.
And what you need to do, Senator Vance, is stop talking out of your ass. Specialists at a daycare are sometimes obligated to get a Child Development Associate credential or CDA credential or certification. It requires 120 hours of professional early childhood education classes and another 480 hours of work experience. In other words, work in a daycare entry-level job full-time for 3 months and then fulfill the education requirements either online or at a teaching institution. That coursework, assuming a normal course load, can be done in 2 months. So altogether, if you work at the daycare and then do the classwork, it can be done in 5 to 6 months. Not 6 years, 5 or 6 months. But JD Vance, who claims to have unique insights and psychological stability because he has children, thinks the government places horrific burdens on anybody who wants to work in daycare. JD Vance either knows better and is lying, or he's a moron. Neither description is a good one for Vance, and this remarkable gaffe follows a pattern. Vance often makes absurd generalizations and delivers outrageous stereotypes, especially about institutions and families who are different from his.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies. Why is this just a normal fact of American life? That the leaders of our country should be people who don't have a personal and direct stake in it via their own offspring, via their own children and grandchildren. So many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And that really disorients me and it really disturbs me. We should care about declining fertility, not just because it's bad for our economy, but because we think babies are good. And we think babies are good because we're not sociopaths.
The fact that so many people, especially in America's leadership class, just don't have that in their lives, I worry that it makes people more sociopathic and ultimately our whole country a little bit less mentally stable.
Well, people who are mentally stable have the ability to sort fact from fiction and engage in basic logic and thinking. Sociopaths, JD, make up nonsense in order to bolster their warped views. Making up crap about daycare requirements and suggesting grandma and grandpa take care of the kids when you're asked about daycare costs, that is deranged. I'll leave it to the psychiatrist to weigh in on your mental state and whether you qualify as a sociopath. but you are certainly headed in that direction, and your boneheaded way of expressing yourself is especially remarkable given your political standing. Never mind being a vice presidential candidate, you are a high-profile member of the U.S. Senate, and the job of a political leader is to speak clearly. The irony is that there's a valid argument that being a parent, having children, forces a certain stability on most grown-ups. It requires you on a daily basis and often hourly basis to think about somebody other than yourself. And there is something to be said about encouraging parenthood and helping families of all different shapes and sizes so that communities are more secure and stable. But Senator Vance, declaring war on families that are different from yours and insulting people with your stereotypes and generalizations, it's all abhorrent. And your sloppiness underscores why so many voters do not like or respect you. The Trump campaign is reportedly anxious about your frequent gaffes and verbal miscues, and all of this comes as the Harris-Walz campaign is sailing along, revealing economic plans that inspire people instead of insulting them.
We will lower the cost of starting a new business. So here's the thing. On average, it costs about $40,000 to start a new business in America. That is a great financial barrier for a lot of folks, and it can hold entrepreneurs back. And the current tax deduction for a startup is just $5,000, okay? So then you gotta make up the delta there. Gotta figure out how you're gonna do that. Not everyone has access to that kind of wealth and capital. So part of my plan is we will expand the tax deduction for startups to $50,000. It's essentially a tax cut for starting a small business. Second, my plan will help existing small businesses grow. We will provide low and no interest loans to small businesses that want to expand, and we will, and this is very important, cut the red tape that can make starting and growing a small business more difficult than it needs to be.
Small businesses taken together are the top driver of the U.S. economy, and the Harris plans are even impressing her usual economic policy critics, including the conservatives
Just
on
want to
Fox
press
News.
the point. When a political candidate comes up with what I think is a good idea, I have to call it a good idea. And a $50,000 tax cut for small, not tax cut, but a tax credit for startups or small businesses, coupled with less red tape. I gotta say, that is a good idea, regardless of our other tax ideas.
While that may be a good idea, it's hard to see how she's going to move forward with it.
Well, Harris will start by getting elected president and having more Democrats elected to Congress. And given the way the campaign is going, with Harris and Walz smoothly running with interesting new ideas, and Republicans flailing, as evidenced by JD Vance's miscues, and Donald Trump's mental decline, the chances of a Democratic victory are growing. Perhaps then, JD Vance will actually do some soul-searching, take a closer look at the reality of things, including children's daycare, and find a new way to actually contribute in the U.S. Senate to our political discourse instead of coarsening the issues of our time and insulting all of us. Good grief. By the way, the questions about Donald Trump's mental decline are intensifying.
She destroyed the city of San Francisco. And I own a big building there.
Editorial board headline, admitted Trump has dementia.
I shouldn't talk about this, but that's okay. I don't give a damn because this is what I'm doing. I should say it's the finest city in the world. Sell and get the hell out of there, right? But I can't do that. I don't care, you know. I lost billions of dollars. You know, somebody said, what do you think he lost? I said, probably 2-3 billion. That's okay. I don't care. They said, do you think you'd do it again? And that's the least of it. Nobody. They always say that, I don't know if you know, Lincoln was horribly treated. Jefferson was pretty horribly. Andrew Jackson, this is the worst of all, that he was treated worse than any other president. And I said, do that study again, because I think there's nobody close to Trump. I even got shot. And who the hell knows where that came from, right?
This is impossible to follow. Trump's asides stack atop each other with such intensity that it's dizzying even for professional political observers to discern what he's trying to get at. Why is a presidential candidate leapfrogging from talking about Harris's policy record to the bath he took on a property he owns to where he ranks in the list of horribly treated presidents? His asides themselves are often unintelligible. Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Manuel Paul, who wrote, "Let's vote for Trump to go away forever." I hear you. I look forward to reading your comments about JD Vance digging the GOP hole even deeper with voters and families as the Harris-Walz campaign is surging. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.